Hey, everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from the bitter cold and yet beautiful sunshine of Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank.
And I'm Dan.
Coming up on today's episode, we are going to talk about gays and atheists, folks.
Gaytheists.
Gaytheists.
No, we're not talking about that. Gaytheism.
No.
What we're talking about. We're gonna
Gays and or...
we're gonna compare and contrast.
Oh, not just comparing,
No.
some contrasting.
We're gonna do all of it.
Because
We'll bring in blacks and women.
Yeah, because, just because you're atheist doesn't mean you're gay.
Oh no, I think it does. I think all atheists are gay.
Anyways, we're going to talk about
pretty sure about that.
some confusion about what people mean when they say things like, atheism, it's the next gay marriage.
It's the next gay marriage. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
That's what what's his name said. What Bill
Bill
Maher.
Maher said, yeah.
Bill Maher.
Oh my God, I'm totally tangled up. I'm trying to get my hoodie off.
Yeah.
And, don't do it when you're wearing headphones.
That was a bit of a production right there.
Oh, I feel better though.
Oh good. Well, I'm going to I'm going to travel across the sea, across the ocean,
Yes.
into Africa,
okay.
where only good things happen.
It's yeah.
That's not true. Matter of fact, we're not going to talk about Nelson Mandela. By the way, that's not what this is about.
Okay.
But what it is, So I recently heard a thing on the radio. I was listening to a show, and I don't remember what show it was, but they were talking, and maybe it was This American Life. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
They were talking about Pentecostal religion in Africa, and it's exploding.
Yeah.
To the point where they keep making buildings. They can't make buildings big enough to house some of these things. Like they made a building that was like 10 football fields big.
Really?
In size.
That's
and now they're
very large.
Now they're making one that's like 50. They're like, it is entire
cities that are
sixes
covered
of
so that
blocks,
they can get
city
all
blocks.
the Pentecostals in?
Yeah. Every week they come to these things. It's amazing. And it's awful.
Okay, Africa's huge. Where are we talking about?
Well, okay, so I'm not sure where that report was from. I just wanted to lay some groundwork. I wanted to paint some pictures in some people's minds as to how big the Pentecostal movement is in parts of Africa.
It's big.
It's huge. So
Very
now
large.
specifically, I'm going to take us to Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay.
In Kenya, it's huge too. And here's one of the lovely things that's happening as a result.
Okay.
Pentecostal preachers are offering, for a voluntary donation that is mandatory probably, but they swear it's not, a cure for AIDS.
Oh.
A cure. They do a ceremony.
A full-on cure.
They do a ceremony. They burn the antiretroviral drugs that these people are taking.
Wow.
These people give up to their whole life savings. And then a couple prayers are said and they're cured.
Well, why has anybody notified the CDC?
They need to. They are holding out this cure. America needs this cure.
Well, Africa needs it probably a little bit more.
Africa needs it a lot.
Face it.
So thank goodness they're giving it to them.
Wow.
It's very, very It's a heartwarming story about curing AIDS with prayer.
With prayer. So okay. What's happening beyond just that?
It's just one of those things where people,
Have there been stories of people now obviously getting sick?
people are dying. Of course they're dying. Yeah.
Or sicker.
Africa is sort of replete with apocryphal stories of what causes and doesn't cause AIDS, what can and can't cure AIDS. This is the continent that gave us the if you have sex with a virgin, it'll cure your AIDS thing. So there was a whole bunch of rape of children that's still going on
God, really?
Because and AIDS rape of children to top that off.
Yeah.
Because it cures your AIDS. You guys didn't see my air quotes, but I did some air quotes there because it doesn't actually cure your AIDS.
Well, thanks for clarifying, Dan.
I just think, there's
it's really sick.
Yeah. Here's a quote from a name that I'm not going to be able to pronounce. Jane Nganga.
I think you did a pretty good job of that, Dan.
we would have no way of knowing.
Think I could probably spell it based on
Good.
your
Good. There are 2 apostrophes in that name.
Oh, I would have missed the apostrophes.
Jane is coordinates the Kenya chapter of Inarella Plus, an interfaith network of religious leaders with HIV, and she said religious leaders living with HIV.
Okay.
And she's saying, yeah, we should be on the forefront, encouraging adherence to the medicine,
right?
As we offer psychological and mental support to those infected and affected,
right?
So there are groups working.
If people could just recognize that the limitations of religion are at the edge of your psyche,
right?
That's if you see some benefit from religion, that's where it is, folks. Don't trust it for your body or the real world or getting what you want.
It belongs on the playground in the backyard of your brain.
Yeah.
In nowhere else.
Yeah. It even belongs there.
Contrast that with the words of Pastor Joseph Maina of the Agmo Prayer Mountain, which is a Pentecostal church outside on the outskirts of Nairobi.
Prayer Mountain?
Prayer Mountain.
Sounds like they didn't build a building.
No, they just have a mountain. They built a mountain. Wow. That's more impressive than a building. He says, I believe people can be healed of all kinds of sickness, including HIV, through prayers. He says, we usually guide them. We don't ask for money, but we ask them to leave some seed money that they please. Which to me reads, they have to pay us.
Yeah.
You have to pay us for this.
Yeah. Yeah. We want money for your
cure. There's a history in a lot of African cultures, and I don't know specific Kenyan culture, but I know that there's a history in a lot of African cultures of like witch doctors whom you would pay for various tinctures or potions that would help you in whatever endeavor you're doing and stuff like that. So I think this is probably just that translated into Christianity,
and also being applied to something that it's one thing like if you bruise yourself,
right?
Oh, witch doctor, help my bruise heal,
right? Or witch doctor, help me on this hunt so that I get something, so that I bag a deer or something.
It's fairly harmless stuff,
right?
But when you start applying it to something that you're gonna die from if you don't take the medicine,
Christian witch doctor, cure my AIDS, and they're saying cure.
Yeah,
they're not saying like your AIDS, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
While you have this virus in you.
Well, I'm also concerned here that there seems to be some confusion between HIV and AIDS, and I think we need to clarify.
Well, I don't know that they make much of a that advanced in their thinking about it if they're going for prayer cures at this point. Yeah.
I don't know why that struck me as funny. But all right. Anything else?
No, that's just it. People cured of AIDS.
Well, I've got another story of it's not even closely related. I was going to try to really segue it, and I couldn't even come up with anything. All right, so there's this story this week that absolutely fascinates me in as far as how big it blew up here in Salt Lake.
Oh, okay.
It was like front page news.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I know where you're going.
It's the story of... Well, I kind of want to tell this... I want to do this story justice.
Tell it like it's a Christmas... Like it's a tale of Christmas joy.
Yes. Okay. Well, so they're down in one of the suburbs of... one of the very Mormon suburbs of Salt Lake.
Of our fair
Taylorsville.
Mm-hmm.
It's in part that you could call it the Mormon belt of... Or I actually saw it on a planning... at a big planning event for the Wasatch Front. They called it the Mormon Cultural Center.
Oh, really?
Down in sort of those southwestern suburbs of Salt Lake.
Huh.
Because the rest of them, if you go west, they're more ethnic, and if you go south, they are just old and rich.
This is not a rich area.
No, this is just good old Mormon working / middle class people.
Right.
So anyways, so this bishop of one of these wards down in Taylorsville, LDS ward, Mormon ward, he decided that he needed to teach his ward, the members of his ward, a Sunday lesson. He wanted it to be. He felt a need to teach a story about compassion towards the homeless.
Oh, good.
Right. And here's the thing, Mormon. We need to really state and be clear about this. Mormon bishops are not trained to be bishops. They are members of the congregation who've been selected to oversee, to administrate the ward.
Right.
And so they conduct the meetings. They will call on certain people to prepare a talk, but they're not typically on Sunday up there giving a sermon or instructing the ward. It's not their role.
Right.
And so, anyways, he felt he needed to teach this lesson. So he has a friend or an acquaintance, he knows somebody who does like Hollywood style, in fact, works in the film industry, makeup, hair and makeup. And he called on this person to help him with a disguise so that he could walk in and be unrecognizable to his ward, members of his ward, and appear as a homeless man. And so he really worked on his character. It sounds like he did some good, physical,
some body work.
He really changed the way that he walked. He kind of did this hunched over thing. And and he put on a lot of shit. There's a wig, and he had some serious, some chops going on.
Some gray sideburny things happening.
And they put some warts and sort of skin blemish, lots of blemishes on his face, and kind of just made him look a little dirty. And
he looked pretty haggard.
He looked the part. If I had seen him the pictures I saw of this guy walking down the street, I would have thought he was a homeless man.
Indeed.
Kind of an extreme case. As somebody who, lives close to downtown Salt Lake and works downtown, I see a lot of homeless people.
Sure.
And they definitely don't all look as haggard as...
Right.
But you would think he was homeless. So he does this whole thing where he goes to and wanders around the church grounds before the Sunday meeting started, and to get sort of the reaction of people. And some people were really generous, and some people just kind of looked the other way,
right? And
sort of
as in the fine tradition of Mormonism.
Oh yeah,
they just sort of felt very uncomfortable and clenched their butt cheeks really tightly together and walked past.
The clenching of butt cheeks is definitely a Mormon action. But that to be fair, that is a societal reaction to homeless people.
Sure.
To look the other way.
Yeah.
To just be a little uncomfortable and look the other way. Well, anyways, this guy's
I do it.
wandering. I mean, it's Taylorsville.
Yeah.
There are no homeless people wandering around panhandling
in Taylorsville. That's true. There aren't.
And so it was really strange. And so he the meetings start. I can't remember if he was actually ever asked to leave or not.
He was asked to leave by a few people.
Even as he was being...
A few people even called the police.
Yeah. But other people showed acts of kindness. Well, anyways, he ends up appearing during the sacrament meeting.
Right.
And wanders up to the pulpit. And apparently one of the counselors was sort of in on the whole thing. And so he knew to sort of turn over the pulpit to this homeless guy. And he gets up there and he starts to kind of mumble and do this and do that. And then all of a sudden he does the big reveal where he takes his hand, pulls off his wig, right? And the congregation is, oh my God, like audible gasps. Right. And people start crying. And people,
of course they do, because Mormons are criers. Mormons are total weepers.
They are just, they have been taught a lesson today.
Mormons know how to take an object lesson too. I'll tell you what. Oh my God.
But what's amazing to me is the universal positive reaction to this whole thing.
Yeah. It was just, what a brave and amazing thing to do, to teach us all this lesson.
And I kind of hated it from the first moment that I read the headline.
I totally hated it.
I was just like, my first reaction is, if your community is that far gone, is that far callous that you have to like shock them into learning this lesson about having compassion and whatnot toward the homeless, and it's really a lesson about empathy that he was trying to teach.
Okay.
But nonetheless, if you're that far gone, you got some problems.
Well, not only that. I mean, I think that there's a confusing lesson here, because what were they supposed to do? To my mind,
you kick the guy off the property.
The guy's on like property harassing people.
He's asking for money, and that's why you would ask him to leave. Like
Right.
if he sat down at the back of a chapel to sit through a sacrament meeting.
If he said, "Can I come into church?"
That's a totally different thing.
Come into church.
Absolutely, come into church. What can we help
But
you with?
if he's asking parishioners as they walk up to the church for money,
which he was, yeah,
then the societally appropriate thing to do is to ask him to leave.
right. And if he doesn't, which of course the bishop dressed as a homeless guy does not do,
Is not going to do.
then
You might have to call the cops.
you might have to ask him to be removed.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's not inappropriate.
that's not wrong at all.
I mean, I admit to a large degree of ambivalence when it comes to how best to deal with people who are homeless.
I know.
I mean, for my money, most of them, I'm sure, are mentally ill in some way, and even if not mentally ill, somehow incapable of normal societal. What's the word I'm looking for?
Interaction,
or just being part of society in a normal way.
Right. Yeah.
They're just incapable of it. Otherwise, they would have homes.
Right.
Because we all choose homes over homelessness if we can.
Right.
If we have that option, that's the one we choose.
Well, we know that mental illness is a major factor in
Right,
homelessness.
right. And drug addiction is another.
Exactly, yeah.
And, maybe they're the same thing. Maybe drug addiction is a form of mental illness or, or
I think there are those who would make that argument, yeah.
And it's frequently a combination of all these things.
Yeah.
But the point is that, I have a lot of compassion toward that. I don't think anyone chooses homelessness because they're lazy.
No. But the way that you show that compassion is, giving to
organizations,
service providers,
right?
And
that's what I have come to. I really struggle. I don't give to panhandlers. I don't give to people who ask me for money.
The scenario that pisses me off weekly is that there are two panhandlers who I always see at the off ramp, the I-15 southbound off ramp,
Right.
getting off at 4th South.
Yep.
And they sit there as there's like this line of cars, and people will roll down their window and hold up traffic,
Right.
to give to the panhandlers who are there every single day.
Right.
And I'm just like, don't hold up the traffic. And I might sound like a dick, but I'm like, I know that you're not, that it's the right thing to do is to not give directly to the panhandler.
Right. And the other
thing to do is to give to the organizations.
The other thing is that there's danger there. Like, I see people not only holding up traffic, but like throwing a dollar bill as they pass, as they're driving past, and then some person's running out into traffic to get their dollar. It's dangerous. Yeah. I don't like any of it. I don't like the problem, for one thing. I don't like that there's a homelessness problem.
Yeah,
I don't enjoy
that homelessness problem in Salt Lake.
Yeah, there is,
unfortunately.
Anyway,
especially in the part of downtown that I'm always in.
Well, there you go. I will take us to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. I just watched that movie the other night.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels?
Uh-huh. Oh,
I remember that scene.
Delightful.
It is delightful.
It's on HBO Go right now, folks.
Oh, it's just so much fun. Anyway, in Oklahoma City, the state... have you been to the State House in Oklahoma City, to the Capitol building?
I've been there pre-dome and post-dome.
Oh, there was the addition of a dome?
There was no dome. It was domeless.
And then they domed it right up?
Well, yeah, because it didn't look like a proper Capitol building.
not without a dome. How am I supposed to take that seriously without a dome? Anyway, on the Capitol grounds in Oklahoma City, in OKC, there is a big stone, like granite, 10 Commandments.
Oh, there is?
on the grounds.
There's also an oil derrick.
Well, yeah. You better have one of those.
It's really a 10 Commandments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So now we've talked about this problem before. We talked about the American atheists' solution to this problem in Florida when there was a 10 Commandments out in front of a courthouse.
Right.
Which was to put a really, really ugly other monument that they paid for out.
That was, I don't even know what it was a monument to. Tastelessness?
Yes.
Tackiness?
Tackiness. A monument to tackiness. Well, I contended at that time that we as a movement would be better served to sponsor Satanists
Which is
going out
absurd.
and do it. Well, because an atheist thing is one thing, but when
you said this to me, I was like, oh yeah, and just like confirm everything anybody on the conservative religious right would say about us.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that we are Satanists.
We funnel it through a third party.
Yeah. We need to be clever about it, obviously. But I'm just saying that I think it serves our purposes better for Satanists to be putting up because they're an actual religion, whereas atheism is not a religion.
Right.
And so that's what I thought. Well, in Oklahoma, that's happening.
Oh my God.
Or rather, it's sort of happening. The Satanic Temple, which is a New York City-based religious organization, has offered to donate a public monument to the Oklahoma City Capitol Preservation Commission for display upon Oklahoma City's Capitol grounds.
And what has the commission decided to do?
They have not made a decision yet. This is not. This is the first. This is the serve has been made. No volley has gone back and forth yet. So I think it's great. I think these guys are the ones who need to be fighting that battle. Because I think they get it. The thing is that they totally get it.
Oh, they know they're being dicks.
Right.
They know they're being
but
dicks,
they also know
in the right way.
They also know that they are a religion. So you can't not compare them.
Okay. Let's back up. There are details about the monument that we don't know.
We don't know anything about the monument.
So they haven't said like how big it is, the shape, what it says.
I don't know anything about that. They've just
offered to
this
do
was a
one.
press release that they put out that just said, "Hey, by the way, we've offered to do a monument of our own." And I'm guessing. I mean, what I'm guessing is you're going to see a pentagram with the goat head in it. You're going to see like it's going to
be a statue of Satan himself.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be fantastic? I mean, the thing is that while Christians could look and just shake their head and tisk at an atheist monument, they can't just shake their head and tisk at a Satanist monument.
Right.
They would freak the fuck out. Because it's not just like turning your back on Jesus. It's rooting for the other team.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like
clearly
the whole... I think if anything is going to convince people to stop putting up religious monuments in on public grounds, it's going to be these Satanists.
Yeah.
I am behind them 100%.
Oh, wow.
They've never officially offered a monument before, but they have gone in, tried to assert their voice on other First Amendment issues. Earlier in the year, they had a rally in Florida on the Capitol steps in Tallahassee in support of Governor Rick Scott. In support of Rick Scott for his passage of Senate Bill 98, which allows for, quote, inspirational messages at assemblies and schools. So they took the position that was while it was apparently an attempt to promote Christian beliefs in public schools, instead they're saying it promotes diversity, and we'd be happy to do some assemblies in your kids' schools.
Oh, these people are diabolical.
They're great. These are the same people that did the what do they call it? The pink mass over Fred Phelps's mom's grave.
Yeah.
Making her posthumously gay.
That's the one. Yeah. And I think I tried to make the same joke then, too. Mm-hmm. They're diabolical.
They're fantastic. I am such a fan of this group of people. I mean, the pink mass was kind of cheeseball.
Yeah, but great.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, dickish. But you would expect a group of Satanists to be a little dickish.
I would expect them to be a lot worse than dickish.
No less than dickish.
Right. If that's as bad as Satanism gets... That's great.
Wow, I'm curious. Is there a phone number I can call?
They should call it snarkinism.
That's ridiculous.
So they think that. So someone asked them. This is Hemant. How does he pronounce his name? I should know. Hemant Mehta. Mm-hmm. I should know. He's a really prominent atheist. I've just never met the guy, so I don't know how to pronounce his name. On his website's The Friendly Atheist. And he posted a bunch of questions to them, to the Satanists. And one of them was, what will you do if your monument is rejected? They said, we are at a loss to think of a legal basis upon which they possibly could reject us. They have set precedent themselves, and they simply can't reject a monument on the grounds that it is being donated by Satanists rather than a Baptist deacon. They're great. Wow. And I'm sure that the ACLU will back them.
Yeah, they would have to.
And the FURFF, maybe?
I don't know about FURFF.
Maybe not FURFF, but I mean, gosh, I'll send them $25.
I just can't get over the fact that they're. I mean, it should not be a deal for me that they're Satanists. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Satan. Clearly, right? But like, there's something about it that I can't get over. I'm like, no, they worship the devil.
You still got that remnant of like you don't believe in God, but somewhere in the back of your head, you're like, yeah, but the devil's bad.
Well, it's not based in any like sense that there is a devil.
Right.
It's just like. Yeah, it's visceral. It's totally 100% like, yeah, it's one of those vestigial,
right,
remnants of, whatever.
Anyway,
oh, God,
I'm just thrilled by it.
Well, all right. Well, I am going to go to a story about the Hopi Indians, who are of Arizona, who are trying to stop a sale in Paris. Of Hopi artifacts. That are sacred. They're used in sacred rites. That the Hopis engage in. There's about 70 sacred masks that are going to be, I believe, auctioned off, and they believe it will fetch. Oh God, where was the figure? It was. At least $1 million. They figured was going to be the total collection. Value of once all the masks are auctioned off. And it raises an interesting question because the sale of Indian artifacts, especially of this kind, are prohibited in this country.
Oh, really?
The sale is prohibited in this country.
Where did the Frenchies acquire these masks?
That's that I don't know. But
I can imagine that there could be very diabolical ways that they could have acquired it, but also there could be just legal ways. Maybe some Hopi guys gave up masks at some point.
And that's possible. And now there's a collection of them.
Yeah.
Typically, obviously, like when one mask is sold between, two individuals, the Hopis don't even know that it happened. Right. But this is one of those big mass auction events, right? That's being promoted so that everybody who would be interested in these artifacts, is aware of it, so that it drives up the prices.
Right. It's the French version of Christie's or Sotheby's,
something of the sort. Yeah. And so anyways, it really just kind of, actually, one of the interesting things that it brings up is the fact that we have embedded in treaties with various different nations, we have agreements that we will return cultural artifacts to those nations, right? And our government has worked on that issue.
Interesting.
Nobody ever thought to reciprocate that in these treaties, right? And so while we have a treaty with France, I believe, that would help them retrieve cultural artifacts that had been sort of pillaged or inappropriately taken out of their country during times of, war. They won't acknowledge it in return.
Oh,
and so the Hopis are kind of, they're
SOL.
they're but I find it just interesting. I mean, first of all, you can't really find photos of these things, right?
Oh.
There's because it's also, well, I mean, you can now, because obviously the people who are selling them really don't care about whether they're sacred or not to the Hopis, right? And so on the New York Times, I was able to find some photos, but
there's no
absolutely stunning
oh my God
stuff. I mean, really cool. Like if you're into like
really
artifacts,
cool stuff, like creepy crawly, scary, cool.
Yeah, like they use, I mean, everything that you would expect. There's feathers and, you know, animal hair and whatnot. That sort of.
I mean, how are they sacred?
Very elaborate.
I mean, okay. So frankly, because I am me, I don't care about what's sacred to you that much. You know what I mean? I care about, like, if it's yours rightfully, then you should have it.
Right.
And if it's not yours rightfully, then you shouldn't have it.
Right. And that brings up an issue that I wrestle with a lot, which is I want to respect other people's and their sense of like what's appropriate and not. You know, I mean, let's say like with the Mormon temple. Now it's something that I went and I had personal experience with, and so in order to demonstrate over and over and over that it doesn't have any the covenants that I made in the temple have no power over me. Right. I'll do things like say what my temple name is, or I'll describe the
which
ceremony.
Is what? Do you want to say it to our people, to our listeners?
Reuben.
Your temple name is Reuben.
You know, talk about, you know, what goes on in the temple, but it's a means for me to exercise that whole sense of it doesn't hold any power over me, because I was sworn to never talk about it. Right. And so for me, that's my sort of breaking through that. Sure. But when you have, but there is a line there, right? that I don't want to cross in order to be a civil member of society. Right. Yeah. I mean, so I want to, especially a group, you know, like the Hopi, right, who are members of an terribly marginalized group in this country, and who are the survivors of a genocide. Indeed. And so you kind of want to, like, I don't know, protect them, a little extra nice to them when it comes to what they say is sacred about their culture. Right. Right. I guess so. Like, and so I think, you know what, if they feel that if this is just out and out offensive, I mean, it's the whole thing about, you know, naming a sports team something like the Redskins. Right. Right. Or here in Utah, the Utes.
But I don't see this as equivalent. What I see, again, this is why I really want to know how these masks were attained. Because to me, it's more like for instance, if we went and took your old temple clothes and the garments that you used to wear and put them up on Craigslist or put them up on eBay or something, there would be a lot of Mormons who would be horrified and who would be hurt and who would feel like you are desecrating something sacred to them and blah, 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 blah. Right. And I don't give a shit about that. Right. About their feelings about that. Because they're yours. You know, you got them fair and square.
Well, you would hope that people who view these kind of items as being sacred would sort of have like an expiration date on their, or some kind of way that they stop being sacred. When they're in the hands of people who view them as sacred, then they're sacred. Right. When they're not,
this is what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that, like,
maybe you as a group should be a little less sensitive. Right. And
But to me, it makes a difference if these masks were taken from Hopi Indians while they were, you know, during the genocidal stuff. If that's the case, then by all means they should be returned. By all means. If there was a Hopi guy who didn't give a shit about his mask that was handed down to him, and he sold it to some other guy, or he gave it away, and that's how these masks were attained, then I think that's a different matter.
The auction house says, this is from the New York Times article, the auction house says that a collector who has not been identified legally bought the items in the United States at sales and auctions over 30 years, beginning in the 1930s, and that the coming auction complies with French law.
See, to me, that unless the Hopis produce a claim that's more than just these are sacred to us and you shouldn't sell them, I'm not tremendously sympathetic.
Historians say that many Hopi artifacts were taken long ago by people who found them unattended in shrines and on altars along the mesas of the Southwest. Others were confiscated by missionaries who came to convert the tribe in the late 19th century. Some were sold by tribe members. But even those sales were not legitimate, Hopi leaders say, because they may have been made under duress and because the tribe holds that an individual cannot hold title to its religious artifacts. They are owned communally.
There you go. I mean,
so the Hopi would not have given them away. They were sacred to the Hopi.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, in a case like that, where it seems fairly clear that these were not somehow transferred legitimately to new owners,
yeah,
I think they have a case.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Anyway, it is an interesting thing. Can I ask, was the headline "No Hope for the Hopi"? Was it Hopi-less?
Hopi's hope to hop the pond.
Oh, good Lord.
To
no Hopi.
Hopelessly.
Oh, okay. No, stop. Nope. You've taken too long.
Hopping. Hop is a good one. Shop.
Okay, stop. Just stop.
Hopi's hope to hop the shop.
Hop on pop. Hopi. The Hopis should reach out to
They hope to stop. Hopi's hop.
Okay, write it down and then put it on Facebook or something. We're wasting valuable podcasting time.
Ones and zeros, people. Being wasted.
Anyway, I'm moving on to, a lot of our show today is about giving, is about how and to whom to give. We had talked a couple weeks ago about the Salvation Army and giving to them, and how they are a religious organization. They are not. They are a religion. They are not a charity.
No,
they do charitable work, but they are a religion primarily.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that
they aren't.
No, they are. And what I wanted to bring up was that lately I've seen a lot of religious people talking about how much more religious people give to charity than non-religious people. Yeah. And the statistics seem to bear that out. They give a lot more. Well, it turns out that of that, the most of the polls and the surveys that show that don't differentiate charities from religions.
Oh. So if you're giving to like your church's general fund,
every time you put something in on the collection plate, you get to say, "I'm giving to a charity." Well, you're not, Brother Jones. You're not.
Yeah, and perhaps giving to a church it shouldn't be tax deductible.
Almost
charitable giving should be.
Right. Almost 3/4 of charitable giving, quote unquote charitable giving, goes to religious organizations
to keep the heat on and the lights on.
Well, I mean, church. Who knows? I mean, a lot of that probably
pay for the rectory.
I'm not going to be disingenuous here. A lot of that probably is used for charitable work.
Maybe,
but we don't have a delineation of that.
Okay,
we don't have any way of knowing how much of it is for charity and how much of it is. Yeah, this is a problem. Just paying for their pastor and paying for the church, the church functions and all of that sort of thing.
Let's be fair. Most of the giving to a church, and I think I am being fair here,
okay,
is going to the upkeep of the institution of the church,
right,
and not going to feed the homeless.
Indeed.
That might happen with some of that money,
sure.
But I don't have numbers to base this on, but let's face it.
Well, because churches don't have to reveal their numbers.
Oh, yeah.
This is the problem. Yeah. This is what one part of the issue. I mean, every 501c3 that's not religiously oriented, 501c3 being like a nonprofit organization,
right,
has to open their books.
Yeah.
But religious organizations don't.
Right.
So the fact that, a Mormon can claim that 10% plus of their income goes to charity is absolutely false.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah. Now, here's the cool thing about Mormons. Mormons are very strict about their 10%. They give they are meant to give 10% of their income, gross income, mind you,
right,
to the church in tithing. But there's also this other side thing that Mormons are often expected to do, which is called fast offerings. And that's meant to be once a month, you give up a couple meals, and then you donate that money to their fast offerings, and that's all charitable, or meant to be charitable.
Well, I believe that money goes to, like, the Bishop Storehouse program.
Right. So it
goes to the church welfare program.
Right, exactly. So it's feeding other church members. It's not like feeding non-church members, but it's still charity.
Yeah.
I still totally count that.
I count that as charity.
And actually the Mormons do really well with welfare.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's shocking to me how well they do with welfare, considering how opposed most of them are to
like state-run welfare.
Right, exactly.
Their church-run welfare is abundant.
Yeah, indeed. So, so I'll grant them the fast offerings, but I'm not going to grant them that 10% is charitable donation.
No.
So no. I just found that fascinating. I thought, almost 2/3, or rather almost 3/4, it's 73%. Of quote unquote charitable giving in the United States of America goes to religious organizations.
Wow.
So yeah, your religious people are giving a lot more to charity, unless you actually parse it out.
Look at they're paying so they can belong to a church.
Right.
Yeah.
They're paying dues to belong to an organization.
Yeah.
So
and that's what it should be. And I wish our tax system actually, tax code actually reflected that. I mean, maybe there's hope in the near future. I mean, that judge, we talked about this last week, I think, finding that the housing deduction or housing credit or whatever it is that pastors are able to take, that's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
So maybe some of this can be rooted out, but yeah, churches should not be able to just run on government subsidy, which they currently do.
They don't pay any taxes. They get free money, and then they just
their members all get the benefit of having given that when it's tax time.
Exactly,
which they shouldn't. They're paying dues to belong to something.
Yep, and if they were doing it right. I mean, most of these religious organizations do charitable work. So there should be different things. If you donate to the charity side of it,
do a little line item on your donations.
Do line items, and these organizations should have to just separate out their money.
Yeah.
Organizational money, charitable money,
yeah.
Two totally different things. If you give to one, you're not giving to the other. Right. And then I'm fine with them having tax deductions and all that stuff for the charitable side.
Right.
It's great.
Ta-da!
It's easy.
Problem solved.
Exactly.
Right now, here on TGIA,
we are solving problems
in the purple room,
saving lives here, people. That is our goal.
All right. Well, how down at BYU, we've talked about this before.
The Brigham Young University.
Brigham Young University. It's owned by the Mormon Church.
Mm-hmm.
They they're. I don't know if it's known widely, but it's definitely known here in Utah and among certain circles. No caffeinated beverages are officially sold on campus by the university.
Right.
Right.
They make it a point to make sure that
if you go to the Cougar Eat,
yes, exactly,
in the Wilkie,
in the Wilkinson Center,
you will not be able. You can get Coke, but it's caffeine-free Coke,
right?
Caffeine-free Diet Coke, and so forth and so on. The local bottler here is willing to do that for them.
Right.
And so, anyways, there was some hubbub last year that led to the university actually having to make a statement on the reason why, right?
Oh,
and that they don't. It's nothing to do doctrinally. Right. This is when the church actually.
Yeah, the church had to come out because most Mormons were assuming that there was some some sort of unspoken rule that you're not allowed to have caffeine.
A lot were, because let's face it, Salt Lake City runs on Diet Coke.
Right. Well,
You know.
but it was based on the idea that coffee and tea were out, and why would coffee and tea be out?
Right.
Well, they have caffeine,
Right. Mormon,
or something.
So anyway, so the church officially says there's never been anything about just caffeine. We don't drink coffee and tea. That's what the word of wisdom is talking about.
Okay.
But then Brigham Young University obviously didn't. So everybody was like, oh, well, what is Brigham Young University going to do? Are they going to change? Are they going to start selling caffeinated beverages,
right,
on campus? And the official statement came out that there's just no demand for caffeine on this campus, and that is why BYU Food Services has never offered it.
Right.
Nobody wants it.
Right, because nobody who's a college student would ever want caffeine.
Never.
What could they do with a drug that would keep them awake?
Well, this November, a group of 9 industrious enterprising BYU students have have started the company Caffeine on Campus. They have a website, caffeineoncampus.com, where you can go to order a caffeinated beverage to be delivered to you wherever you are on BYU's campus.
Oh my God!
So you can, and they're keeping, they have like Coke, Diet Coke, and I don't know what else, but like
still no coffee.
Yeah, well they're not going to do that,
right?
And then like Dr. Pepper, but they don't have like Diet Dr. Pepper. It's a fairly limited selection at the moment. But what's fascinating is that it's the success of these students are going to expose BYU's.
Right. Are they successful? Is it working?
Well, yeah.
Because I'm just imagining, because,
there's a delivery fee, unfortunately.
Right.
So there's a pretty good markup on this stuff.
Right. I'm just thinking, there are grocery stores around the campus,
but it is also a large campus.
Yes, it is.
Right. And
so if you're on foot, if you're walking and you can't get to something,
and there's a student that they talked to in this article that I read, who talks about how he'll be studying in the library, and he hits a wall, and so he takes a walk to a gas station that's just off of campus.
Sure.
And so clearly this is already something that students are doing. Whether or not that student is going to actually order online.
Do the students openly drink the caffeine in front of everybody?
I don't think there could possibly actually be a taboo amongst the students. I mean, I was there. Nobody cared. People had like real Coke.
Did they?
In their fridge and whatnot.
Oh.
Like we weren't, there wasn't a real prohibition against it. And everybody, even then, back in the 90s, thought it was silly that the Cougaree just would not stock regular Coke and Diet Coke.
Oh, they're so dumb. They're so dumb.
So
the fact that you can start a business delivering something that's readily available just because everything's so weird on that campus. I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Okay.
Stupid BYU.
Well, there you go. If you have any questions if you need caffeine delivered to you, you can email us. You can get in touch with us. We have many ways. One of the ways you can email us, you can write to us at podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
You can leave us a voicemail at 424-666-8442.
Right, or you can go to the Facebook page, like us there. We just barely broke 1,000. We finally have more than 1,000 likes.
For all your work on that.
I know,
helping us get there.
Go to facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and you'll find us there.
Yeah.
A lot of fun conversations happening.
Yes, indeed. All right, we are going to listen to some audio from one Mr. Bill O'Reilly, getting into the Christmas season as only he can do, into the holiday season as only Bill O'Reilly can.
Over the years, we've taken on the role of protecting the federal holiday of Christmas. As you know, there are some Americans who are offended by any reference to Jesus Christ. And that's what the USA celebrates on December 25th, the birth of the baby Jesus. Now, everything was swell up until about 10 years ago when creeping secularism and pressure groups like the ACLU began attacking the Christmas holiday. They demanded the word Christmas be removed from advertising and public displays, and many people caved into that. So now we have the Happy Holidays syndrome. What is interesting this year is that Hanukkah will be over on Thursday. So there are no more holidays between then and Christmas Day. It's just Christmas if you want to invoke happy. Bad news for the secular progressives. And then there's Macy's, a company that I generally like because it supports wounded warriors. But this year they're touting Santa Claus, who will help you, quote, with your holiday wish list. So here's my question to Macy's. What holiday is Santa celebrating? Winter solstice? The birthday of a reindeer? What? On the national front, there are 3 primary culprits seeking to diminish Christmas. The most aggressive is the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which routinely threatens to sue small towns and school districts if they dare utter the word Christmas or allow choirs to sing carols in public schools. The irony is that nobody's bothering the atheists. They are free to celebrate whatever they want to celebrate. They are free not to believe, and they are free to snicker at anybody who does believe. That's not good enough for these people. They want to banish any mention of Jesus in the public square. They are the oppressors. The Christmas spirit people are just upholding a nice tradition. So why are we allowing anti-Christmas madness? A poll last year showed 47% of Americans believe there is a war on Christmas, 40% do not, 13% are confused. So once again this year, I will keep an eye on this.
Oh, Bill.
Well, the problem with this poll is I would have said, yes, there's a war on Christmas. Of course there is. I acknowledge.
I don't think there's a war on Christmas.
I may not call it the war on Christmas, but there are efforts to do what they're saying is being done, which is removing Christmas from the public sphere.
But that doesn't mean a war against Christmas. That means a war against a religious public sphere. That's a very different thing.
Oh, I'm fine with it being called the war on Christmas. Does it get them all riled up?
You just want him to go on more rants.
Well, because he can rant.
It's so cute when he rants. You're such a cute ranter, Bill.
So atheists are ruining Christmas once again. And it's ironic because we can truly celebrate whatever we want to.
I know. Nobody's trying to stop us from celebrating all of our secular holidays.
Maybe somebody should get on that.
Although he seems to discount the idea of solstice being a holiday.
Yeah, that's a problem because there are other holidays.
It's
not just the Jews and Christians in this country,
what about
dude.
Kwanzaa, which I think is also a made-up holiday, but you gotta count it.
Human light.
Yeah.
There's human light.
What about Festivus?
That one is made up.
Yeah, well, they're all made up at some point.
So, yeah, that's true. What'll be fascinating is in a few hundred years when people are like, so how did, what is the founding of Festivus? And they're like, well, it started on a sitcom.
Right, exactly. There was a television show.
Popular entertainment of the time.
They used to have this thing called television. And one of the high priests of their television was a man named Seinfeld. Who, anyway.
All hail Seinfeld. Have you familiarized with yourself with the sacred scripts of Seinfeld?
Oh, yes. I'm very... Can I just say, Seinfeld scripts. What's the deal with those?
What's the deal with those?
May peace be with you, and also with you. And what's the deal
with peace?
With peace
being upon you.
The Seinfeld religion. Oh, it's going to happen. Archaeologists are going to find Seinfeld and be like, and then in the 20th century, they worshipped a Jewish man. Anyway.
Another Jew who founded a world religion.
It just keeps happening. These Jewish offshoot religions. They're everywhere.
we've got some correspondence.
Yeah, people wrote to us and they voicemailed us. Should we just sort of go back and forth?
Let's do back and forth. I like back and forth.
Okay.
Yes.
Why don't you start with a voicemail?
Okay.
And
I've got voicemails.
I'll be able to piggyback off
I have to admit, I wasn't fully. Why don't you read an email? Because I don't have them. I was going to start getting them. Loaded up.
So here's an email. We put out a call. We were talking about anti-Semitism, if you'll recall, which we may have just displayed, by the way, a little bit when we were talking about Jews and offshoot religions. No, not really.
I don't think so.
Anyway,
there's nothing malicious in our anti-Semitism.
But we put out a call for people to try to explain to us what the root of anti-Semitism is. Where the hell did this shit come from? Because it goes back centuries, and it was just really hard to figure it out. And we asked, because we had gotten, you'll recall, an email from Rabbi Gruber, who's a secular rabbi now, but used to be Orthodox. And we said, hey, what about you? And he wrote to us. He did write to us. He said, why is there anti-Semitism? Starting with the easy questions, huh? Yeah, okay. We're not into small talk, Rabbi Gruber. Come on. He says that he wonders if hatred of Jews is really fundamentally different from the other types of prejudice and hatred. It has been more widespread and has a longer history than other hatreds, but is it really all that different? There seems to be an innate evolutionary need to have an us and a them. One of the first things my ancestors did, after all, when they coalesced as a people in the Canaanite Central Highlands, is to decide on who the other was. It was not enough that they were the Israelites. Their neighbors on the Mediterranean coast had to be the Canaanites, others, the uncircumcised, etc. So I thought that was an interesting thing. There is a sort of tribalism element to it, an element of just
they don't belong.
It's not that they're them; it's that they're not us. You know what I mean? Right. It's not who they are, but rather their not usness that we're concerned about.
Right, and sort of, I want to phrase this the right way. The fact that so many members of the Jewish community don't assimilate when they join another nation, right?
Right.
When they go to another country, they hold on to their traditions.
Indeed.
Which a lot of those traditions also make them stand out.
And we had a few other people write in and say stuff to that effect.
Whereas other immigrant groups, I mean, have largely assimilated. I mean,
there's also reason for that. I know that they were largely not allowed to assimilate in much of Europe when they first went in, and so they. And I also know things like, they were allowed to do things that Christians weren't allowed to do. So, for instance, if you needed a loan, for the longest time you had to go to a Jew because Christians weren't allowed. It was taboo within Christianity,
right? Usury
to lend,
right?
Probably also not great to borrow, but people needed to do it anyway to conduct business. So you'd go to a Jew, but then everybody would look down on the Jews who were lending. At the same moment that they're borrowing from these guys, they would also look down on them for doing something sinful.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's like going to a prostitute and just like the whole time, like, shame on you, young lady. Now,
I'm sure you wouldn't be the first.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
That's
true.
True.
That's what probably some of the Johns are getting off on.
This person is a sinner. That they can look down on this person that they're participating in the sin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just about.
So, I mean, there's that. There's just so much to it. We got so many emails about it. One that I did want to mention from Wendy said that because I had said I wanted to back off of the word anti-Semitism because Semitic people include Arabs as well as Jews.
Right.
And she very correctly pointed out to me that, but what the word has come to mean is just...
If you look it up in the dictionary.
Hatred of Jews. Well, I mean, I think you'll find more than just one definition in the dictionary.
Right, but what's always important with any definition is the first definition, because I looked it up.
Yeah, and so
it's about the Jewish community.
in the common lexicon, it's certainly about Jewish people. So yes, I was being silly on that one. She also pointed out that the thing is that she goes back and sort of talks about persecution, notable instances of Jewish persecution that go all the way back to the First Crusade in 1096 and the expulsion from England in 1290, and like there are instances of it that go back thousands of years.
Yeah. Well,
of course,
I think that's what we were sort of marveling about.
Right.
Is how sort of through time, how this one group keeps getting picked out.
Right.
Right. And that was sort of the crux of like, and our sense of like not feeling any animosity toward the Jewish community ourselves.
No.
And just being baffled by the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
And just not knowing.
And, we had one guy write in and talk about, the fact that there are different, like when we say Jew, we could mean a number of things. We could mean, someone who is sort of racially or from this group of people.
Who descends from Jews.
Who descends from people from the Middle East who are of a lineage. And I don't know that it's a race, but at very least it gets
difficult when you start looking at other groups like the Ashkenazi and so forth and so on. Like there are European Jews who are not Semitic,
right?
To use your definition.
Sure.
Of the word.
So I think that's problematic. But it does muddy the water a little bit that there are also people. And we had one person write into us and say that she was she lives in England now, and she's from the U.S. She's Jewish by heritage, though she's an atheist now. And she said that she encounters a lot of anti-Semitism in the form of anti-Israel. To which my thought is, what, Israel as a country acts like a bunch of dicks a lot. And if I can't criticize how Israel is acting towards like the Palestinians or whatever, the without policies, being accused of being anti-Jewish,
right?
There's a huge problem.
That is a problem, because the policies and actions of a nation
are
totally different. Those are political, and you can see the differences between a government. Hopefully, the differences between a government and its people,
right?
And the people who live in that nation,
right? Well, and even like the people of that nation. A lot of them, you look at how a lot of these Jewish quote unquote settlers act when they go in and they settle an area of the Gaza Strip or whatever, and then they cut down the olive orchards of the Palestinians who've been there for forever or whatever,
right?
And they're acting horrifically,
right?
They're trying to commit I won't say the word genocide, but they're committing atrocities against a group of people. That's not because they're Jewish.
Right.
I mean, their religion gets muddled into the political
it's
conflict.
Incredibly complicated. And,
right.
And difficult to distill those things out.
Right. But my willingness to criticize Israel is not anti-Semitism.
No, absolutely not.
And so, and I think that gets muddled in there. And I wonder how...
I think it's very important for people to always make the distinction between governments and people.
Indeed.
Because, let's face it. A really easy thing that I hope most Americans can agree with, no matter your political affiliation, is the fact that we see our government do foreign policy stuff that mortifies us. And so we end up voting for the other guy. Right. And then we vote for the other guy, and we vote for the other guy. But it doesn't matter. The government just keeps doing shit.
Right.
Internationally, right? And so, that I don't think happened democratically, right? You know what I mean? Like, the people don't necessarily support these things, but they just keep happening.
Or a lot of the people do.
A lot of the people might.
But that's
why it's important to know the difference between a government and the people that live in a nation.
Well, and also important to know the difference between a culture and a religion.
Yeah, exactly.
And also the different, but the problem is that the problems in Israel and in the Palestinian territories and in all of that is the reason it's so intractable is because all of this stuff is mushed together.
Yeah, it's great.
Religion, culture, politics are all squished into the same thing.
It's a messy mess.
It's a damned mess. Anyway,
and who even knows the solution?
Well, every American president knows the solution, and then it doesn't work.
Until they try to do something about it.
Anyway, go on. Do we have a voicemail?
Oh, yeah, we do have a voicemail. Let me pull it up. This is... I like this one. This is a response to the Philadelphia story about the temple.
Yeah, we talked about how guys who are working on the temple in Philadelphia aren't allowed to have coffee and aren't supposed to swear on the work site. And we thought that while they're building it. So we thought that was funny. And I postulated that bad things might happen. And here's a response.
Hey, Frank and Dan. This is Brian. I was just calling in. About your podcast last week, you were talking about the new Mormon temple in Philadelphia and mentioned that there will probably be some graffiti inside the walls. And I just wanted to confirm that. I grew up Mormon and grew up in North Carolina. And when the North Carolina Raleigh temple was about to be dedicated, I was part of the group that helped clean the temple, get the all the construction junk out of there so that they could have the open house. And one of the places that I ended up was in the attic areas and the various places that no one ever goes in the temple. And I saw lots of graffiti. I'm talking swear words, fuck and shit and hell and all sorts of things, and then detailed drawings of buxom ladies being pounded from behind, and it was very surprising for my at the time teen and very believing self. So just wanted to let you know that there will definitely be graffiti inside the walls and in the attic of the temple there.
Oh my God! Well, we can only hope.
Oh, I love it.
Well, there's something. I mean, what are these construction doers like? They clearly don't like the Mormons,
Right?
But they'll
Why
take
would
the
they?
money.
Yeah, of course they will. But yeah, I do love that thought. That's great, and to have it confirmed that we know that it's happened somewhere.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's what we needed. That's what we needed to hear.
I suppose. I mean, I kind of wonder what Brian did. Did he report it? Did he did they get buckets of paint and paint the innards of the attic to make it sure that it was all covered? I mean,
poor little Brian. He must have been traumatized.
Oh my goodness.
Little Mormon young men are not prepared for this sort of thing. Why would anyone do that to the temple? Oh boy. I love to see. Yeah, start singing. Sing a hymn, elder. We got an email from Ryan who said that he is a 40-year-old ex-Mormon who's been an atheist for about 20 years. Over the past few weeks, you guys, meaning us, have talked about religious parenting, religious parents choosing to forego medical treatment and just pray for their sick children to be healed. About 5 years ago, I was in need of a kidney transplant. My kidney function was down to below 5%, and I was just a couple weeks away from dialysis. When my very large, very devout Mormon family found out about my problem, I received a lot of nonsense like, quote, "We are praying for you," from my 50-plus first cousins and aunts and uncles. My brother and sister were not blood matches, he says. It was my atheist cousin who went and got tested and then donated his kidney to me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Then the rest of them claimed credit by saying it was an answer to prayer. This is not quite the same thing as parents of sick children refusing medical treatment and choosing to leave it in God's hands, but it is similar. Religious people get to feel like they are actively participating and even helping by doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of their prayers, that cousin was a match.
See?
God works in mysterious ways.
And God was more willing to risk an atheist
clearly
than one of his good Christian flock, one of his good Mormon flock.
Yeah, to save an atheist.
Isn't that amazing?
God, wow.
I mean, I've seen that in my life. I've seen a whole bunch of Mormons sitting around praying, and like me being the only one who stands up and goes, "Hey, how about doing a thing?
Yeah.
How about we try something?" So,
action.
Yeah.
Action. That's all you need.
Yeah. Thanks for writing in, Ryan.
All right. A caller now has a suggestion for us.
Hello, Daniel and Franklin again. This is Alina from Texas. I wanted to let you guys know happy Thanksgiving holiday Jewish Kwanzaa-ish. I I'm taking an Intro to World Religions course, and for extra credit, we could go to any type of religious service and write a paper on it. So for fun, I chose the Unitarian Church. I went into it really knowing nothing except for when they make fun of the Unitarians on Prairie Home Companion. And I have to say, I was delighted. I was surprised. They're so smart. They talk about philosophy. They don't forbid religion, and they don't reference any religion. And I just wanted to suggest, maybe, if you're in the mood for a future church review, I know it's the holidays, you might be roped into going to a different type of church service. Check out the Unitarians. I grew up in a church similar to you two fine folks, and I miss the sense of community. And I really think that atheists who are thinkers, philosophical, logical, but appreciate like-minded people and the community that a church gives can benefit from a Unitarian church. And I want to go again, and I suggest you guys check it out. Have a good one.
Well, thanks, Alina.
Yeah.
The
I just want to go to a church where people believe something.
Yeah, my mom used to love the joke about the only time Jesus Christ is said in a Unitarian church is when the Jewish janitor slips and hits his knee or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I've been to Unitarian church many times. My ex-wife used to be a paid singer for the Unitarian choir,
really?
So I would go and see the services there. And I did think it was nice. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that I like about Unitarian Church a lot.
What's that?
Is that like a lot of other major religions, Unitarian pastors are expected to go and get a doctorate of theology.
Oh, wow.
And are expected to have really studied and not just theology, but they also study sort of the giving of sermons. You know, these guys are good. They know what they're doing.
Right.
They can craft a really nice message, and they're going to invoke Thoreau, and they're going to invoke, poetry, and they're going to invoke they're going to invoke a whole lot of really powerful stuff, and most of it's not going to be religion. But if they bring religion in, it's with good reason. Right. It's because the Bible does have some nice things to say amidst all of the bullshit, and they're gonna draw that out, and but they're gonna parse it with honesty, and so I liked it. The reason that I didn't like it, or the reason that I stopped going to Unitarians, because I wasn't going there for church. It was nice to have a nice philosophical message, right? The one here, I'll just do that too. The Unitarian church here in Salt Lake City, I stopped going because he was getting really political. The pastor was getting, about local issues. This was sort of around the time when the Mormon church took over a section of Main Street and cut it off to traffic, and they were fighting that because the Mormon church did not pay a commensurate amount of money for that chunk of Main Street. They just took it over. And
well, I thought it was the nature of the deal wasn't they paid, right?
They paid some, but it's not
they gave the city some land in return for it.
Yeah, but I think everybody agreed that it was not.
I think the main issue was that they were shutting down a part of Main Street.
Yes, indeed.
Traffic downtown, around that part of downtown now,
right? It's a nightmare to drive through there. So this is that was my only real objection, was that he sort of assumed that everybody was very liberal and on his side about everything.
And I bet 99% of the people there were.
Indeed, but it still bothers me.
But you weren't.
I was on his side. I agreed with him. It just bothered me that he was getting so political. I just didn't. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I just care that
there's a time and a place.
There's a time and a place. It didn't belong there.
It was inappropriate.
I thought so.
And Dan Beecher put his foot down
by leaving. Anyway, I have no objection to Unitarians, though. It's an interesting place. I'll tell you what, go there for Christmas, because it is hilarious to watch them try and wriggle around Jesus. It is delightful. Like, you're singing all the songs that you grew up with, but there are small changes in the wording. Literally, you're like, you open the hymn book, and it's joy to the world, the word is come. Oh. And you're like, really? What word?
Yeah.
What word is that? Is the word Jesus? Is that the word? No? Okay.
Lord.
It's the word Lord.
It was easy, though. They were able to just erase one letter.
Oh no,
and put in another.
Yeah, they had you get your hands on a Unitarian hymn book because, and just go straight for the Christian or for the Christmas ones, and you will just see them. Sometimes they leave Jesus in, sometimes they take him out. They are struggling. I love it.
Poor guys.
I love it. Anyway.
All right, we have one more voicemail.
Okay.
And this is a little bit longer of a voicemail than we typically play, but it is so well stated. And the thing is, we received last week we talked about being thankful as atheists,
yes.
and to whom are we being thankful?
Yes, in the context of Thanksgiving.
Exactly. And
we got a lot
of people responded, and this voicemail sort of encapsulated all the thoughts in a very nice way.
Right.
And so we figured we would just play the whole thing. So Here we go.
Hey, Frank and Dan, this is Thane calling you again. Appreciate the opportunity that you give for us to respond. You asked the question of who or what we should be thankful to during the last podcast. And I had some pretty strong thoughts about this. Like you, I don't feel the need to be thankful towards any particular deity or metaphysical object. But when I say that, what I'm really thankful for, it's a multi-layered thing. First of all, it starts with I'm just thankful for the opportunities that have been presented by my immediate family, by my parents and my siblings, who have brought me up and raised me and provided an environment which has given me the opportunities to do the things that I get to do obviously in a country and in a part of the world and with the social status that allows me so many different opportunities. And then I guess I extend that back to my ancestors, going all the way back, who provided those opportunities to my parents and to my grandparents and on. And then that extends obviously to the community. We live in a nation where people generally respect the rule of law, and they provide opportunities for us simply by being good people and by following the social contract that we have, which helps us all enjoy these opportunities. And this goes all the way back, of course, to the Founding Fathers. And as an added bonus, many of them were skeptical in nature, like Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson, those who established a nation with principles that gave us these opportunities. And finally, going all the way back to our Homo sapiens ancestors and our pre-Homo sapiens ancestors who had the ingenuity and who underwent suffering and who came out with triumphant to bring us here today. And then finally, that extends all the way to the earth itself. And not in a worshiping way. I'm definitely not a druid or anything like that, but just for the bounty and the things that were provided. So when I say I'm thankful, it's like the entirety of my existence. And so what I mean when I say I'm thankful for something, and I don't direct it to an individual, what I mean is that entire existence. And perhaps that's what you feel as well when you're saying you're thankful too, and the discomfort comes from not being able to focus that in on one being. But now that I'm an atheist, I'm not restricted to thanking just one being. I'm allowed to be thankful to everything and to all the individuals who have been a part of my life and whose existence led to mine. Anyway, thought I'd share. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, Thane.
We're thankful for Thane for encapsulating so well the views of so many.
Yeah.
Although Thane, you missed one.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean you had so many levels of thankfulness, but we had one person write in and say that they would thank the Big Bang for creating all of existence. Okay?
Thanks, Big Bang.
Thing, you only went as far as the Earth.
Yeah.
It goes so much deeper.
There's more than just the Earth. Clearly.
Anyway, thanks, Thane.
Wonderfully said. So.
Indeed. And just on that note, I will say pull something out of one email from Shane in Texas who said, and this comes from his Chinese wife. He says, China, being an atheist country, has interpreted Thanksgiving as, quote, Appreciation Day. The holiday mostly centers around children thanking and giving gifts to their parents as a way of thanking them for giving them life. Friends will thank each other for their friendship, and employees will thank their bosses for jobs. It is a time for people to thank people. It also involves a large meal. However, turkey is less common, so meals include goose, duck, chicken, or pork.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Which
Wow,
my sister learned.
I didn't know that the Chinese did that.
No, I didn't know that either. My sister did learn about the turkey thing, though, when she was teaching English in China. And she couldn't figure out how to teach them the word turkey, so she just ended up using the Chinese words for American chicken.
I thought that's KFC.
Well,
Which there are plenty of.
yes, indeed.
So,
Well, thanks everybody for all of your stuff. If we didn't get to your particular thing, please don't be offended. We still love you anyway. As we move on,
well, in line with sort of this thankfulness and the season
that's right. We were going to do a thing.
I just wanted to. We had a ton of wonderful responses on Facebook a few weeks ago. When we posed the question as part of a Sunday survey, and by we I mean Mackenzie, she posted, "Do you know a charity worthy of our listeners' hard-earned money that is not religiously affiliated?" And there were a ton of responses, and I thought that because there are now 1,000 likes on Facebook, but that. We have more listeners.
We have a lot more than
that. So we figured it might be good to just kind of mention them on the show, some of these on the show, and get that out there. Heidi mentions the Detroit Forgotten Harvest, which rescued over 45.5 million pounds of food by collecting surplus.
That's nice.
That's fantastic. Kiva is pretty amazing, says Audrey.
How do you spell that?
That's KIVA.
Okay.
And I believe it's .org. And there are different teams there that you can join for giving. And so there's like an atheist, agnostic, skeptics, free thinkers giving team. I believe that's how it works.
Sure.
Then there is, let's see, next on the list.
A number of people mentioned Doctors Without Borders.
Doctors Without Borders.
I think that's a great group to give to.
Yes, indeed. A lot of people mentioned some animal giving places. Good. The ones on the list that I was familiar with that I can kind of vouch for. Best Friends, which is absolutely fantastic. It's located in southern Utah, the main Best Friends, but I believe they've gotten pretty big in the western United States now. They're a no-kill facility. Of course, the ASPCA, if you are concerned about animals, those are good places to give.
I will say, Barbara did mention Piggy Poo, which is Arizona's little guinea pig rescue.
Do not make fun of the guinea pigs, Dan.
Sorry, I just don't care. Am I bad?
Okay,
Am I a bad person?
Stop. People care about animals.
They do care about animals.
And there are a lot of different ways to care about animals.
Right. And humans mistreat animals, and so people feel
adopting
bad about that.
from your local humane society rather than finding a puppy at a puppy farm.
Which you recently did.
I have a little dog now.
How is he, by the way?
Oh, Milo is doing great.
Little Milo.
We've determined that he is most likely a Chihuahua Italian Greyhound mix.
Oh, a Chihuahua hound.
Or a Mexican Greyhound, as I like to call it. And anyways, definitely. Let's see. There's foundationbeyondbelief.org that was mentioned.
Yeah, and they actually do some really interesting work, and they're specifically they're specifically clearly their goal is to be out and proud about their non-religious affiliation,
which is fantastic,
which I think is cool. And
then Robert sent us an email about an organization that he's volunteered with in Texas called CASA. That stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. They work with children removed from their homes by Child Protective Services.
Right.
And so instead of somebody from Child Protective Services being the advocate for that child,
and just them being another case number in the
absolutely maybe 30 cases that they're working on at the time, he says, as a CASA volunteer, they actually just take on one case.
Right. It's great.
And so that sounds absolutely amazing. And he also brought up something about just foster care in general.
Sure.
Wonderful ways of giving your resources.
Yeah.
In a way that you know exactly how it's being given.
Indeed.
In that case.
Yeah,
So,
indeed. There are many more suggestions on the Facebook page. You can feel free to go and look those up yourself and see what other people are donating to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'd like to thank everybody who helped us out in tracking some of these places down.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. Moving right along. Did we have any donors?
We did have some donors. We needed to thank them.
Yeah.
We got Matt, who gave us a one-time donation.
Thank you,
and
Matt.
Janice, who is now a monthly subscriber.
Well, thank you, Janice.
Both of them have chosen to give some of their giving dollars to help make this podcast a thing that can continue to happen.
Yeah.
So, if you guys want to do the same, you can go to thankgodimatheist.com and find the donate the support link
button,
on the right side of the screen.
Absolutely. All right. Well, cool. All right. Well, we said at the beginning of the show that we were going to talk a little bit about gays and, well, actually, gays and atheists. But what this is actually in response to, I came across this article on, actually, it's more of a blog entry at the Religion News Service.
Right.
They have a lot of bloggers. And this is from Chris Stedman. And that's a name that's come up on the show before.
We are aware of Chris.
He's the assistant humanist chaplain at Harvard University, and also the coordinator of humanist life for the Yale humanist community.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of the faithiest guy.
Yes.
Right? And he has the article or the title of this blog entries is atheism is not the quote new gay marriage or the new anything else. And he is responding in particular to a Bill Maher comment that he said that we hear a lot from other atheists as well, where Bill Maher said atheists are out there, they're thinking it, they're just not, or they're just afraid to say it, but that's changing, he said. It'll be the new gay marriage.
Right. He also posts another quote from Todd Stiefel, who said, "I consider myself working on the next civil equality movement, just like women's rights, LGBT rights, and African American civil rights."
And he takes umbrage.
He does.
With the equating of the movement that we currently see atheists involved in this country, and comparing that to any other movement.
Right.
But specifically, he's a little bothered about the whole gay one.
Oh, he's positively bristling. He is just bristling at this notion.
And he goes through and he breaks it down and he talks about things like hate crimes. The gay community sees tons of crime, violence directed toward its members.
Sure.
Whereas the atheist community doesn't, at least in this country, again, really experience violence. Atheists are able to really blend in.
Right. And
way more than even...
and while atheist billboards are almost certainly going to be spray painted upon...
Sure.
Or, the defacing of things atheist is a common thing.
And you'll definitely see comments on the website or on anybody's website out on if it's atheist whatever, there's going to be potential for death threats or threats of violence or anything like that. So there is a sense of
just get out of our country sort of hostility.
There's hostility, sure,
a lot of it,
and so definitely the atheist community experiences sort of, I think, that sense that we may not always be safe to be fully open, and of course with families. And friends, some people might feel, or the workplace, they might feel unsafe in that way, right?
Right.
That there's a threat of being ostracized,
right,
or of losing your job.
Yeah, you could lose your job, you can lose your family, you can lose all sorts of things by coming out as atheist. But I mean, what's the crux of his of his
Well, the crux
objection.
of his whole objection, from what I read, is that the experience is not the same, that the experience is not equal. So to say that it is the next gay marriage, that the atheist movement sort of represents this next step
right.
in our society, in our culture of acceptance and whatnot, that's not fair. That's not right.
Right.
You know,
he says, personally speaking, I rarely fear for my safety as an atheist in the U.S., but I frequently do as a queer person.
Right.
But
I don't think that you have to, in order to be the next thing, I don't think you have to be just like the thing that came before.
Right. I think this is our problem, is that when we both, you and I, read this, I think our response was like, yeah, but if the only way that we get to compare these two movements is if they're exactly the same,
right,
well, then nothing is like anything.
Right. Well, I've been in the room before when, like, people get all up in arms when somebody says that the gay, rights movement is sort of the civil rights movement of our day, and they equate it to, or they sort of compare it to the African American civil rights movement back in the 1960s.
Yeah,
and people freak out.
Yep,
I've been in the people freak out.
They do.
And they're like, it's not the same thing. Well, of course it's not the same thing. It's a different community. It has different needs, has different forms of oppression that have been used against it.
Right. Would gay people have had to have been slaves in order to make that comparison? Like, how far down the road do we have to go before the comparison's allowed to be made?
I don't know, but I just thought of gay slaves.
Oh, you like that thought. You dirty perv, you. Anyway, I think this is the point. This was back in the 90s. I wrote a letter to the editor of the Salt Lake Tribune, stating that I thought that gay rights, and this isn't a thing to say now, like everybody knows this or everybody's heard this, but at that point I said that gay rights was the next civil rights movement and blah blah blah, and that people, I think specifically what I said was the people who are on the anti-gay side of the gay rights fight, we're going to look as anachronistic and stupid to history's eyes as those who are fighting for the continued enslavement and or the continued hatred of black people in our country.
Right.
And the backlash that came from that was that it was like, somebody mentioned, well, the Congressional Black Caucus says that it's not the same thing.
Well, no, it's not the same thing.
And blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, yeah.
But there are similarities there. And here's the thing. Like, I think whenever anybody in a movement, in a community, looks back and sees wonderful examples of successful movements, right?
Yeah.
There is a desire to say, we're going to be that. Right. We're going to be that thing. We're going to do that. And we're going to look at what they did. And we're going to try to do it the same way,
right? Or
in ways that can be applied to our community,
right?
I don't think that by doing that you're somehow saying, well, now we're just honorary gays and black people,
right? Exactly.
Like it's not like all of a sudden now we're members of your community,
or that our struggle is the same,
or as difficult. I would say that we're kind of chipping away. You start kind of with the really bad one, right? Like, I mean, like,
what do you mean?
The really bad big one. I mean, slavery is horrendous, right?
In American history, that's about as bad as it gets.
Level, it was accepted by law, right? And you think about the oppression of an entire people,
yes,
because they
not just oppression. Slavery,
right. Slavery, and then the subsequent labor oppression, right? You look at that, and that is an evil. That is clearly identifiable,
right?
And it doesn't matter who you are or when in time you are. I hope that you could look at slavery and go, "That's really sick and wrong,"
right?
Well, once you deal with one issue, it seems like to me other people are going to start coming out of the woodwork and being like, "Well, we've had problems too. As you notice, your society becoming more and more accepting, the harder it was for you to hide, the more likely you're going to come out first.
Right.
The easier it is for you to hide, the further down the list you're going to be.
Sure.
In my mind.
Sure.
And also that has to do with sizes of groups and blah, 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 blah. But atheists can hide like mad.
Yeah.
We can hide better than anybody.
We can go to church.
Because I know the two sides of me, right? Which side can hide really easily?
Between gay and
Between gay and atheist. You know, atheists could be like...
You can pass for religious without any...
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't read super gay, but people can tell you're gay.
But at the same time, you
live with a man.
I live with a man, and yeah, we have 2 dogs.
Right. You're very gay.
Yeah.
But I mean, but the thing is that I mean, for a lot of our gay friends, passing as straight is not an option.
Exactly.
And nor would they want to. But I mean, but even if they wanted to, there are gay people who can't pass as straight.
Right. But I think that like the demands of being gay, if you're trying to be authentic, your hiding is really difficult.
Right.
Right. The demands of being atheist, if you're trying to be authentic, it's pretty much just up in your head.
Yeah, you just don't have to say
You just don't have to say anything. Right.
Right. Normally, as you go through your day-to-day life, maybe in the South, somebody's going to ask you what church you go to.
Right. Exactly.
But,
it's the omission of doing something rather than going and, I mean, if you're partnered with another man, you're going to stand out.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. But I think that like for each group that sort of has started to see success or that has had success. So like now that we're starting to see gay marriage spreading across the land.
Indeed. Like a disease.
In fact, a very crazy court case is up here in Utah right now.
Here in Utah, that's right.
This thing, I mean, it could go either way.
Yeah.
I don't know what the implication, I mean, this judge he's going to have to craft his decision very well.
Uh-huh.
But he knows what's on him.
Right.
He has to know the place that he holds in history.
And these lawsuits are happening in states across our country.
Yeah, exactly.
So
nonetheless, when you have a movement that's like starting to see a lot of success, of course other groups are going to want to emulate that success.
Right.
And by just saying atheism will be the new gay marriage, oh my God, what does that say about gay marriage?
Well, yeah, that's true. It's very positive in terms of gay marriage. The other thing is that, like, we're not saying. I don't think Bill Maher had any intention of saying that atheist struggle is somehow equivalent to the struggle of the gay population.
No,
I think what he's saying is these guys had a civil rights issue that they're working hard at and that they're winning at. Mm-hmm. We have a different civil rights issue, but still civil rights issues, and we're working hard at. And that gay people had to come out.
Right.
Gay people had to learn to gain. Society is now struggling to learn to be accepting of gay people. The same is going to be happening with the religiously unaffiliated with atheism. Right. And that's the comparison. It's not our struggles are the same.
Right. In fact, what's kind of funny about the atheist movement in general is that there's a movement to become socially accepted, which any movement like of this kind will, especially like with the gay rights movement,
right,
fighting for social acceptance. But what's funny about the atheist one is that we're not having to like get laws changed or passed in order, like, we just need to start enforcing the laws that are there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just enforce the Constitution.
Exactly. And that's all we're asking.
Exactly.
And we keep having to fight that fight over and over and over. I mean, how frustrating is that? Like, the laws are already there. We're just like, hey, notice how you're not doing the law now? Anybody? Do you notice it? At least with the gay movement, they have to change the laws. Everything has to change. But our movement is just like, we already have them. The laws are already there. Can we just do it?
Yeah.
Can we pretend like we care about the law?
To be fair, there are some laws that like prohibit, atheists from holding public office, let's say.
Right. In like 7 different states.
There's a few different states where that's there.
But it's not enforceable because the Supreme Court's already struck them down.
Right.
And there are, for instance, in Utah, even in places like Salt Lake City, where it's illegal to discriminate against a gay person for housing or for employment, it might still be murky in terms of like discriminating against an atheist. That's actually a thing. You might be able to discriminate. I mean, because unless you can count atheism as a religion, in which case you can't.
Well, it's on grounds of religious affiliation, right? Isn't that typically how it's phrased?
I would think so.
And so non-affiliation is
affiliation.
A kind of affiliation,
Sure.
isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's dangers lurking about that we haven't seen yet that are probably going to rear their ugly heads at some point.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to keep fighting those battles until, but I mean, I think you're right. The societal acceptance
is the key for us.
Is the battle.
Yeah.
That's our battle.
Yeah.
Once we get that, people will understand that, like,
we can't just fire him. Because,
right. Or, we probably shouldn't have Jesus everywhere on the public square because that doesn't include everybody and stuff.
Maybe one would achieve the other.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think largely we can say that we disagree with you, Mr. Stedman. We disagree with you on several grounds, including, by the way, his headshot, which I think he's wearing an awful shirt.
No. I have a shirt very similar to that.
Do you wear it buttoned all the way up to the top?
No.
I just think he looks bad.
Well, I'm not going to say anything about his shirt,
okay.
But what I will acknowledge is the last time we so completely went after one person.
We had to have him on the show.
We had to have him on the show.
We may need to get Chris on the show. All right, fine.
Because
get Stedman on the show.
Let the emails and voicemails ensue.
I know. Well, let's preemptively strike and just say we're gonna try and get him on the show.
We acknowledge that there are those of you out there who are now pissed at us. So you can get in touch with us.
Please let us know. There are ways of doing it. we have channels open for you to lambaste us. Again, I will point out we weren't going after him personally.
No, until you insulted his shirt.
Until I said something about his shirt. I don't like his shirt. But other than that, I have no problem with the guy himself.
No, we didn't call him a fool or anything.
No,
we've learned that lesson.
We disagree with him on a point. But if you disagree with us, there are ways to get in touch with us. You can tell us by emailing us at podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
You can leave us a voicemail at 424-666-8442.
Right, or you can just go to the Facebook page. That's just facebook.com/TGIAtheist.
Indeed. Well, thanks to the Red Rock Hot Club for letting us use their music.
And continuing thanks to Mackenzie for getting in charge of the
bang-up job.
The Facebook. And we will see all of y'all next week.
Bye-bye.